into roadblocks.
Into roadblocks.
Yeah. What do you think the biggest roadblock to communication is?
Oh. I don't know what the biggest roadblock is. I suppose being self-defensive is a big roadblock, because if you're busily defending your heart, you can't actually hear what someone else is saying.
Yeah.
I think that's probably a really big one. But there's a lot of roadblocks. There's a lot of preconditioning that goes on.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff you take with you from, that you've learnt along the way in your life, and a lot of it's subconscious. It's actually buried, and you don't actually know it until someone points that out to you.
Yeah.
That's a preconditioned idea, and that maybe that's old news now, and you can maybe let go of it.
Habits.
Habits, yes, lots of habits, lots of falling back into repeating recurring patterns.
Yeah.
And some people call them programs, because we're programmed to behave in a certain way, and we're taught to we are programmed from school and from parents and from particular religions, however our life has gone, we get programmed, and however those programs unfold in us, we respond. And I think, personally, that I questioned all of those when I left Australia at 21 and started living in other people's countries and cultures, because suddenly everything that I knew
all the Australian programs?
Yes, it didn't work, because none of that applied, and everything I thought was the acceptable norm was no longer the acceptable norm. So I had to self-examine everything that was put in front of me, because everybody was doing things differently. So it made me question everything, and I think that was a huge learning curve. And one that often people don't get thrown into. They can choose to go that way, but I was literally taken out of Australia and dropped into another country.
So on that point, I actually believe everyone's thrown into that condition.
Do you? How?
When they're in a relationship.
Oh.
Because a relationship, I get a lot of people come to me and say, we've got cultural problems. Like they might have come from two different countries.
Yeah.
Here's the common thing though. Couples come to me, they come from two different cultures. It doesn't matter where in the world, because their parents are operating two different cultures.
Yes.
So this thing about country cultures or different ethnic cultures, so for me I look at it and say, well, simply by the fact that people come from two different parents, they're actually bringing two different cultures.
Well, that's a fair comment.
So looking at it that way, everybody when they get into a relationship is in exactly the same position you are, being transplanted into another country.
Yes.
The big difference though is that what you did was consciously question everything.
Well, yes.
And in relationships, people don't consciously question everything. What they do is they run those old programs and old patterns.
Yeah. And those programs and patterns are ones that we've picked up from parents and school and upbringing. And I can hear this woman who's an old friend of mine saying, oh, but I expected my relationship with my husband to work like my parents. And he didn't do any of those things. And it was like, and she said, I was completely lost, because everything I expected marriage to be wasn't. And so she said, I was like being at sea without any shipboard underneath me. I just felt completely at sea and completely lost. And it was like, how did this happen? I looked at my parents and saw their patterning and thought that's what's going to happen. And he went, well, that's not how I do things. And she was like, okay, so now where do we go from here? I don't know. I don't know where to go.
Yeah. How old, just curious, roughly ballpark, how old was she?
When she got married?
Yeah.
it was a little later than normal, well, certainly later than me, but then everybody was later than me. About 27.
About 27?
Yeah.
So she's had 27 years as a child experiencing what relationships were from her parents,
Yeah.
seeing it day in, day out,
Yeah.
and living her life with this belief for 27 years.
Yes. And then got married and woke up the next day and thought,
Yeah.
this is the patterning. You know,
Yeah.
we have breakfast and we do this and we do that. And he was like, no, I'm out. I'm gone. I'm
Yeah.
off.
Correct.
And she was like, where are you going?
Yeah.
What's happening?
Yeah. So the brain's been consistently wired.
Yes.
That program's just been reinforced day in, day out.
Yeah.
And no one's ever told her that these things need to be challenged. No one's ever told her that relationships are actually two different people coming together, that every relationship's unique. They haven't given her the knowledge, if you like, or the skills to be able to challenge it.
I don't think she ever expected to challenge
No.
it, and she still doesn't. She still looks after him in a way that I
Yeah.
would never do it, like laying out all his clothes and taking care of him, because
Yeah.
you know, and doing things that kind of relates to sort of my idea of what's happening in the 50s. You know, like the women were wearing pennies and laying out their husband's clothes. Well, she still does that.
Yeah.
And I go, why? Like, why? And
So I'm just curious. So is that her?
yes.
That was her parents?
That's her.
Her
That's her and her
parents.
parents.
Yeah.
And she's still doing that same thing.
Yeah.
And I said, when I questioned her as to why she was still doing it, because she's a working woman, he's
Yeah.
a working man, you know, in terms of equality, they're both,
Yeah.
you know, equally committed to this relationship and bringing in money and all of that. But
Yeah.
she's still doing all of those wifely things. And her response was, trust me, it's easier for me to put them out and know that he's wearing matching socks and the right tie with the right shirt than for him to choose, because he will stand there and take forever making a decision. So we get out the door to go to, both school teachers, to get out the door and go to school far quicker if I do that. So I'm actually helping myself. Trust me, I'm helping myself. And I was like, okay, if you're helping yourself in helping him, that's okay. If you're doing it because you don't think you're worth as much as him, that's not okay.
And I often get the case where, on the other side of the fence, he's grown up in a particular style of relationship and expecting her to conform to that.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. My mother never did it that way. How many times have I heard that? My mother never did it that way. So every woman out there who's heard that, I can sympathise. It's not something that any woman wants to hear, I don't think. I don't think we want to be told how their mother-in-laws did it, especially not free-thinking, independent, strong-minded women like me.
Oh, and then you get the other case of the mother-in-law coming in and telling you how to do it.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, that's really good. Somebody else was like that. Mother-in-law came in to pay a visit and rearranged the house to suit her.
That will cause
There was a lot of repercussions from that.
That
Like
will be.
rearranged the kitchen so that when we went back into the kitchen, we couldn't find anything because it had all been resorted into because it made sense to her. And it's
Yeah.
like, wow, on what plane do you think that this is okay? What planet do you think this is okay to come into some other woman's kitchen and reorganise it? That's really stepping over the line, big time.
So in one of the previous videos, I think it might have been the first one in this little series, you talked about frogs.
Frog farmers.
Frog farmers.
Yeah.
And
princes.
And princes.
Yeah.
So the only reason I'm mentioning that is because you also mentioned being a queen to attract a king.
Yes.
So one of the ways that I look at it thank you. One of the ways that I look at it is, with that particular example you've got, is the husband and the wife are like the king and queen of their house.
Yes.
So it's their rules.
Absolutely.
So when you get another matriarchal queen coming in,
yes, challenging the queen position.
Challenging the queen's position and treating her king as a prince.
Yes.
And now sometimes you have these kings in the household
Yep.
becoming princes when the matriarchal queen comes in.
Oh, absolutely. Mother rules. Yeah, yeah. And some particular cultures, that happens more frequently, I think, because the men acquiesce to mum. Much more happily than others. But that's true. But you can also talk about the maturity of a man in terms of knave, prince, king. So, like, there's a page, then a knave, and then so there's like a progression of development, personal development, where they actually stand in their own power, and they. So a king in his own home would have said to that mother coming in, "It's not your place. It's not your place to come in here and rearrange my wife's kitchen. This is our home. Please respect that." Where if he reverted back to being the prince and the mother-in-law coming in, then he's actually stepping down and reducing his power and stepping out of his own power in his own home and acquiescing that power to the mother, his mother and her mother-in-law, and giving that power away. And that's an unattractive thing to do, really, from a woman's point of view. If your husband did that, it's unattractive.
It's like you said earlier, that the men are there to be the protectors and the providers. Now, all of a sudden, from the woman's point of view, her protector and provider has now just stepped out of the way and has completely exposed her.
Yes, and made her vulnerable.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's not protecting.
No.
No, and so that's not appreciated. But men love to be appreciated and admired, so it's not a good thing to be doing. But the frog farming thing is how you can turn a prince into a frog, and that is by emasculating him.
Yeah.
So if you emasculate a man by cutting him off at the knees, which we're pretty good at, we can get really good at that, and cutting them down to size, then they become the frog that you anticipate them to be because you've emasculated them. So don't be a frog farmer, be a queen. And if you're a queen, the man will step up to that and meet you here, not you trying to push them down and creating them, making them into a frog. You'll attract more frogs. Truly. You'll attract more frogs. So if you don't want a frog, you want a prince, start acting like the queen that you are meant to be. And attract a king. And
again, coming back to the theme of this, where love's not enough, a lot of men and women aren't aware of these things, of the way to look at relationships.
Well, awareness is always the first step.
First step.
First step, yeah. And a willingness, actually, before that.
Yeah.
A willingness to become aware and to hear what's being said in a way that's not personal. This is not a personal attack. This is not a personal criticism. This is a willingness to become aware of the programming, aware of the conditioning, aware of the things that are making me behave in that way that maybe I haven't been aware of up until now. But if I become aware of them, I have the power to change them.
And also, for me, it's having a bigger picture. It's like, for me, a relationship is about two individuals wanting to live and work together to build something they can't do on their own.
Oh, that's a nice concept.
Yeah.
Yeah. I haven't really thought about it in that way.
The problem we have, and this was right at the beginning when I asked, what do you see the biggest barriers are? And you really did say it. That for me, one of the biggest barriers is when people go back into their own worlds.
Yeah.
So where a couple is supposed to be working together as a team and there's supposed to be openness with their communication, when people go back into their own worlds to defend their position, you're virtually strangling the relationship.
Yeah, well, that's true. Been there, done that. Yeah, that is true. But I haven't really thought about the relationship being a bigger picture before. So that's interesting. That'll give me something to think about.
Glad I've given you something to think about.
Give me something to think about. Because I have no idea what that might look like. I don't know what that looks like. Do you perceive that as having an ideal, like a dream of what that might look like, or?
This is where, and I covered it. Actually, I don't think I have covered this. This is where we start to get into vision and values.
Okay.
This is where individuals have their own vision and values,
yeah.
and then you look at the vision and values of the relationship. So,
right, so they're shared vision and values?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
okay, so that makes sense.
So in my world, with vision and values, that you have your vision for your life and what's important to you. You have a partner whose vision and values are important to them. In a relationship, the individual vision and values are supported by each other. You support each other.
Okay.
Then you have a relationship which is a separate entity, which you look at the vision and values on the relationship. That one you must agree on.
Okay, so this is when you talk about contracts.
Yeah.
About putting together what's important into like a contract.
Yeah. So everything's being clearly communicated.
Right.
And you're clear on where the relationship is headed. Like, for example, just having simple things in the contract where, you state you want to be open, honest and transparent. So you want to make sure always that the communication is being worked on and improved so that we're not creating any more resentments. When things come up from the past, there's strategies there to deal with them.
Yeah.
I can see you thinking about this.
I am thinking about this. I don't know what I think yet. I'll have to formulate and work on that.
That might be another chat.
It might be another chat. I'll tell you. Watch this space.
So if you're liking these videos, feel free to subscribe, share them with other people. There's so many people out there having challenges with relationships. You don't know if just sharing one of these videos is going to be the difference between a family breaking up or a family staying together and perhaps even seeking help. This is one of the reasons I've created this video channel, is to get the word out there. Check on the link below. If you want to really get into it, I've created an online course which will lead you through how to create a successful relationship, and then we're always here to support you. I call that Your Relationship Roadmap. Until our next video, we'll see you soon.